Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today is the first painting of 2023. It is January 1st. I know that sort of timestamps this painting, but honestly, this is a big year, I think, for all of us, because we made it. We're here. We got here. And honestly, that's saying something. And we got here together, so I'm really grateful for everybody who is showing up in today's live. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
I'm going to be showing you step by step how you can paint this scene that I designed that is dedicated to the new year, what I hope will be happening in the new year. I really wanted this fairy to be optimistic, to be looking to the future. I definitely threw some Pantone's color here and there. Just, you know, it was the Magentaverse. It was just all of the things, just trying to look forward. And I think that it's important that in art that we can not only be creative and take some time to heal and relax, which is why many of you paint, but also process events that happen in our lives. Painting really lets us do that. And 2022, I'm going to officially say it, was a very sucky year for John and I. Very sucky.
It had its
terrible
moments.
And, you know, we've been just kind of trying to keep it together and keep a smile on our face and keep going, you know,
keep swimming. Just keep
we
swimming.
have our wonderful Irish relocation kind of to look forward to. So that's my star, right? That we're looking forward to is our Irish immigration. We have things that we're looking forward to, and I'm really just kind of happy to put it behind me. We got through John's birthday.
Did we just, I mean,
Just traumatizing on a good
I would
year.
say there was a lot of Plants vs. Zombies, and that was, you know,
Yeah.
mellowness.
Just stressed out and playing Plants vs. Zombies.
Just being mellow.
So here we are in this painting. I think it's going to be great. Oh, Deborah Evans, thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to also welcome Norma Powell to Emoji. There's just Emoji Clubs. You just get custom emojis from chat if you want to join that.
Yeah.
It's a thing you could do. This painting, I'm going to break it down. We're going to break it down into steps. You're going to see those steps go up. They're going to be time stamped so that you can find your place again in the painting 7 to 10 days, 14 days later.
Okay, hold on just a second. I gotta check something real quick.
I'm going to have a mini book that we publish that releases. So if this painting is a little bit above your current skill level, but you're close, no worries, because what you can do is use the mini book to paint along. I'm going to break down all the techniques. I'm going to tell you something really honestly here. So many of you said, oh, I'm really worried about painting a figure. And what I can promise you is that this is a weirdly tricky, easier than you think figure. I really love that about it. It's going to be one of those where you're like, oh, if I remove certain things and just paint other certain things, it's totally a human figure, or in this case, a fairy figure.
Right.
Now, our canvas today is a 9x12. Be sure and check the upcoming paintings because I've increased some of them to a 12x12 and some of them to an 11x14. We're going a little bigger now that we're on the tilted wood surface. I can paint a little larger and still see what's going on. So, oh, Patty Hoffman, Happy New Year, Patty. It's a Patty party.
Hi, Patty. Thank you.
So you're going to see that. So be sure and check those descriptions because there will be changes. We are retiring a color this year and we're bringing a new color forward. Be sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. Of course, I'll post on Facebook and on the community tab here and in all the other places. But honestly, it's really good to have the newsletter because that's where you get links and information and the first kind of flush of knowing things. So we have the Happy New Year Wish 2023 paint, Phthalo Blue, the Oxazine Purple, Quinacridone Magenta, Cad Red Medium, Cad Yellow Medium, Phthalo Green, Burnt Sienna, Ultramarine Blue, Yellow Ochre, and Titanium White. That's the colors for today. If you don't have the exact colors and you're really wanting to paint today, I'm going to tell you a secret of art. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
It really will. Value is the most important thing, how light or dark a tone is over necessarily the exact hue, especially in a fantasy painting like this. So this is one of those paintings that can be a little bit forgiving. Oh, Trish Welch, thank you for all you do. You're the reason I paint. Happy New Year. Yes, I'm just ready for a new one, right?
Yeah.
Just ready for it. Let's put up step one.
Okay.
Step one, first step together. It's going to be a great step. This is y'all's favorite step always. We're going to paint the whole canvas purple. And we don't even have to paint it tidy purple. We're going to paint it messy purple, which just means it can be streaky. It's just that we want the canvas to be a little bit purple instead of a little bit white. Notice it's just super streaky and I'm not worried about it. I'm also going to show you guys a really cool technique. I think I've done it once years ago, but for you guys, many of you guys, this will be the first time you're seeing it. I think you're going to love it. So if you can save either the plastic wrap to your canvases or grab some saran wrap, I think you're going to love it. Oh, Sylvia has made 2 years as a member of Emoji Club. I can't believe we've had custom emojis for 2 years.
I know.
That's a weird thing that YouTube offered. I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I'm
We'll
like,
just put some of this up for folks.
We'll put some fun custom emojis up. And it's actually been a better feature than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't sure what I thought of it, but now I actually am attached to it, and I would be really annoyed if they took it away. See, it's just purple. Just purple. I'm not even using up a lot of paint. Look how very little of my paint I used. Because I added a lot of water to my brush, and that let the paint go out further. I might kind of, you know, smooth the surface a little bit, but what this is also doing is just making sure that the canvas has a thin, fine line layer of purple paint. At this stage also, if you are going to be not framing and just hanging the canvas straight on your wall, you could paint the edges if you wanted to. That's a thing that people do now to keep their stuff, you know, looking nice in the world. I'm rinsing that out. And so you can do that. If you guys have questions, put them all in caps. The moderators are not here as art cops. They're actually here for the occasional weird robot, but mostly to help you guys find links and resources on the website. And hopefully in the future in the store, but where you can find things and help you out. And then sometimes your questions get answered live on the show.
Yeah. We do our best to catch some.
We do. And if you're coming here much, much after because you just like fairies, hi, welcome.
Hello.
For sure you're going to be able to paint one by the end of this. But you can also put your questions in the comments below after the show. And I check my YouTube channel every single day. Mm-hmm. And Facebook. I check everything for comments every single day. So I'm looking for your questions out there. I'm going to dry this and we'll come back and do another step.
Yeah, and this is just... I saw it. So she just blew her saran wrap right off the top, so I'm going to go over and get that for her. You're going to need some of that here in just a little bit. We'll go on to the next step with that. And don't forget to check in the link in the description down below for all of the stuff. And I will ask Elizabeth for you just in a minute to have her tell you what paint you're working while I go over and pick up that saran wrap that fell on the floor. We'll get that in just a second. I'm also going to check focus. Oh, look at that. Got that focus on. The palette was a little not perfect, so I fixed it. You know, one of those things where you're fidgeting with buttons. All right, guys, this is going to dry it. And then, all right, next step, you say?
Yes.
Next step.
I will need my saran wrap back. Not this step, but soon.
I'll get it for you. Yeah.
Okay. Girl, mummy of 3. I know a thing about you. I'm a mummy of 3, too. Wants to know what hoot rating is this? For sure, 3 hoot. But it has a traceable, which can lower the hoot.
Elizabeth wants to know what paint.
What do you mean? Oh, I am using Sennelier Acrylic and Golden Artist Colors. They're both professional lines of paint. I have a few lines of pro paints that I love, and I kind of just go between all of them, like whatever's round and everything, and they all have different qualities that I really like, but they're all quality. That's what they all have in common, is they're good. Now, we're going to use something called an oval mop. This is a Princeton oval mop. I use a synthetic filament. You kind of see these blenders and round mops and everything out there often in goat, but I feel like the goat gets too wet. And that's why I choose a synthetic. If you're new to painting, I recommend you choose a synthetic. You'll see that I have paper towels here. And that's just a way of controlling, you know, the amount of water that's on my brush. Now I've just done the purple again, and I'm going to come here and put out a second coat with this nice soft brush. Sometimes I'm dipping in water. I'm going to go mostly just the purple right up here in this left corner. So I dip in water and I drag off the extra, and that helps thin it, and that will help the brushability. That's the way that the paint kind of spreads out. There's not a particularly important brush direction here. I'm more concerned about getting it dark in value. Like I'm going to add a little phthalo blue to the mix. Kind of come here and you can see I'm deepening that a bit. Kind of adding that here, and you can see that's giving a little rococo. I'm going to rinse this brush out of its color. That's where I kind of swish it in the water vigorously and get a lot of the color out, because I'm going to want to do kind of a color change here, which is I'm going to take a little of my Cad Red and Doc's Purple together. Come down here at the bottom. So it kind of gives you kind of a burgundy purple. Now, John does a cool thing where he helps with the value of the painting, where sometimes like you'll be like, oh, it's really hard to see the value. John comes through and will change some
like that.
of the...
I can pump it up a little bit like that. See,
Yeah,
on the side you can see it's real dark.
Right.
But I'll come from the side and I can change. I can actually adjust each of these cameras a little individually.
Right, so you can see it, and that really helps you see these paintings when they have kind of a dark beginning. And I love a dark beginning. Dark beginning is sort of wonderful. As I come up around this inside, this out kind of outside, I might be more Cad Red. And then I can go right into my magenta, believe it or not, little Doc's Purple and magenta, and kind of come here. I got a little white into that. And I'm just softly blending it. This brush and the fact that the paint is wet allows me to do a soft kind of blended effect that's like an oil painting, even though we're painting in acrylics. It's a thing that I can do, but that's a combination of the quality of the paint, the amount of water in the paint, and the brush that I'm using, and finding that balance there. And if that's a little challenging, especially if you're new at painting, don't be like, I can't paint. Just be like, oh, I have a new thing to learn, and I can learn it. Because thousands of people, like 600,000-700,000 people at this channel, thousands of people have learned to do it, and you can too. You really can, and it's okay if certain techniques are harder and some techniques are easier. That's true for everybody. I'm going to rinse that brush out and put it to the side. Do I have a question to answer? Okay, you did the oh thing, so I was like, uh-oh, maybe there's a question.
No.
Okay, if you guys don't have a question, we're going to dry this thoroughly, and I'm going to show you a really cool technique to create some effects in your acrylic painting. This is sort of in the experimental acrylic painting stuff. You see little fast videos that get bazillion views that kind of imply these techniques, but this is like the correct way to use it in your actual painting. And once you see it, I think you're going to use it in all kinds of places.
All right, so yeah, just thoroughly dry between the steps. It helps make sure that when you're going on to the next layers that we don't muddle the paint too much, because and you can also get things where you can lift the paint that's on the surface by, if it's not thoroughly dried and adhered to the surface through curing. So this process of air drying, and you don't need heat to do that. Just it's the air itself moving across that does it. Heat can speed the process up, but it's not a good thing when it does. It's generally it can cause problems. So you don't want to do that if you can at all avoid it. And that's pretty much it around drying your paint. Sort of do a lot of watching paint dry. So there's the paint for it. And, when you're talking to people and you make wild hand gestures and your wife looks over at you like, oh, she must be talking to me. No. Don't make hand gestures when talking on radio.
Yeah?
Because it brings
They can't see it.
And it confuses you.
Completely confused by it.
Are you ready for the next one?
Yeah, ready for a step. Now, I've got my saran wrap here that's a little bit clumped because it's blown a few times. I'm going to try to open it back up. I like to sometimes save the plastic covering to my canvases too, because it's like a nice way to upcycle it or use it again, so it doesn't just have one purpose and no other purpose. I'm going to take a little bit of my white over to my phthalo blue, right? And I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to add a little more water into it because I want it to be a little more fluid. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to brush out this sort of wet. It's wet, isn't it? This is the funnest stuff. Okay. Well, that's kind of wet now. It has to be wet for this to work. And I'm going to come here and crinkle this up. And it's going to create a very interesting texture in the paint. And we're going to let that sit for just a second so that it can kind of, you know, the plastic can kind of capillary some in and pull some up. And then some artists will leave this for a while till it completely dries and pulls it. But I found if I'm very careful when I pull it up, I can generally do this and then come back and dry it. So I'm being a little bit pressurous. But look at that wild, wild effect. Then you can also crumple this up and make some stampy stamps. You're like, stampy stamps? Yes. Also, it for sure is wonderful to say the words stampy stamp. Get a little of my quinacridone there. And yeah, hey, a little white. We can do that. I'm going to stamp up and down. Some of this does get painted out. If you are into art journaling, you've probably played with this technique a little bit. And you're familiar with this idea of putting something in and then painting it out. Kind of blending some of this here with the magenta. If you're getting a white stamp, which is that you have just a spot of white and it's making kind of a noticeable pop, you just come back through and blend it through. Karen and Anne, thank you both, Karen and Anne. I really appreciate that. Then while this is still wet, it's okay if it's wet. I'm going to get my brush, I'm going to rinse it out. I'm going to cover up any open food or anything I have that could be splattered. Let's see if I can get it there. Okay. Because you definitely don't want to ingest this. And I'm going to make a couple of splatters while I'm here. So I've got a clean brush. I'm going to take a little bit of my cad red and my cad yellow. And I've got my brush a little bit wet, right? So that it will do what I'm about to do. And we're going to use the whack method, which is where we take two brushes together. And there on the left-hand side, I'm going to whack out little orange and then over here. Right? Now, that's our experimental technique background. Fun stuff. This is kind of what elevated the Hoot on this, is that we're doing a lot of fun techniques that are maybe newly introduced to you guys. But as you can see, it has a gorgeous look. If you're in your granite kitchen and you get acrylic anywhere you don't want it, rubbing alcohol works to clean it up even when it's dry. 91%, which I get online, is the best.
Yeah, just take a quick try. Now, you have to be careful when you're drying this because sometimes that wind can make the little dots smear a little bit. So you have to be really careful. Sometimes it's better if you have the extra time just to let it dry because that way you're not disturbing the dots. But, you know, if you've kind of done this a little bit, you know how to put the low wind on and just sort of work it real gently, then you can generally get this done. But, you know, again, it's mostly about just making sure you're careful, and you shouldn't have too much of an issue, I think. probably able to get it done. How is it? Again, taking longer than I had thought. Yeah. Yep, you just bonk the two together.
Look
Okay,
at us
there you
go.
go. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy step, wasn't
Yeah.
it? There's my blue hair. Don't
There's
know.
more
I
stuff.
got a wild hair and has some blue hair. I don't know how I feel about my blue hair.
Not sure yet?
I'm not sure yet. Can I get my coffee heated?
Yes, you can.
Thank you so much. I really want to thank everybody for being here today. This is fantastic. Now, again, this is a fun technique. This is meant to be fun. Try to think of it in the way that we used to think of creating art when we were little. Not in the way we tend to create art as an adults, which is highly critical. As a kid, you're just like, oh, that's really cool. I put down plastic and I pulled it up and it made a cool texture, and I smushed some plastic and it made another cool texture, and I splattered and it made some more cool textures. Whereas in a grown-up, we tend to be like, that's not the splatter. That's not the texture. It's slightly different than the texture I see on the screen, or the splatter isn't the same, or I'm frustrated with splatter. And it really just sucks the joy out of getting to play in our paint. These kind of techniques are entirely about being playful in your paint. And we're going to paint over a lot of this, leaving some of this in. And so there's no reason to be critical of yourself at this stage. So try to be in your childish state, try to be in your, inner child, and not get your adult critic going. All right. We put up another step?
I did.
Okay. I'm going to take my round brush that I was using for everything there, and I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to start kind of lightening this area through here a bit. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little of my white and maybe some yellow. Maybe a smidge of yellow ochre kind of to tone it back. And I'm going to come here and very, very lightly, barely touching my brush. This is a number 18 Raphael Artini brush. It's a round hog bristle brush. Synthetic hog is perfectly fine to use, by the way. I'm barely touching the brush. This is almost like if you wear eyeshadow, this is like you're blending eyeshadow. But anytime that you have to do anything soft in your blend, this is the amount of delicacy that you're using. I'm keeping it on the toe of the brush and I'm wiggling it around. I'm trying to create random pattern here. So it's a dry brush. It's a random pattern. I got asked a lot, can oil painters do this? Yes, you guys just have some challenges to the techniques. Stephanie, is linen canvas much different than cotton? Is fine grain better for portraits and small details? Stephanie, in a stretch canvas, a linen portrait canvas, which is a fine grit gessoed surface on a fine weave, absolutely better for portraits, but the best for portraits is ampersand art, the cradled boards for portraiture where they have the fine finish. They're the very, very, very best. But if you're doing stretch canvases, yeah, linen is better, and you want a fine grit sandpaper. Dorothy says, how do I get the painter in me to come out? I have desire to paint, but I really want to, help. So are you saying you have no desire to paint and said do desire to paint? I think you meant no. And what I'll say is that we have to get back to the reasons of why we paint. Right now I'm going through something where I'm having a lot of trouble painting in my watercolors. It's just associated to something painful in my life right now, and I can't pick up the watercolor to get there. And what I'm doing to work on it to get back to my watercolor is getting back to why do I like watercolor? And I am kind of doing some, in my own time painting, just playing. I'm going to just be tapping this up and down on the toe, creating little irregular patterns here. This is just soft stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now I might come here into my blue and get a little white, and let's put some green into it, kind of make a turquoise here. That's lovely. Maybe even some yellow.
if you don't get the saran wrap technique the first time, would you suggest trying it over?
Yeah. So try again. So the technique is you kind of put it out wet, right, over a dry surface. You press your saran wrap down and you kind of pull it in to crinkle it. And then you let it sit there for a second. Then you very carefully pull up. If you're having a lot of trouble getting the pattern to stay, you may want to let the saran wrap and the paint kind of go a little bit longer into the dry so it starts to dry under the saran wrap, at least at the edges. I'm going to come into my purple again, and I'm going to work this into there. I haven't even rinsed my brush. You guys are noticing. I'll rinse out. This is just a very delicate technique here. Very delicate technique. I'm going to get a little of this orange going. And there's maybe some white here. Want to make sure my brush is dry. And grab some red. Let's get into our quinacridone and some white. See, just on the toe of the brush. Dancing it around. Sometimes it helps me to imagine that my brush is a ballerina. Right? And because, look at my brush. There's some yellow in it. I got the quinacridone in there. There's some paint that's sitting in there. Oh, thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So see how we're just really, I hope John is like, yeah, he's got a good angle for you to see it. I'm not pressing in on this brush. You're not seeing it go in like this, are you? It's very light. I did kind of like what it did when I did that, so I may do that again. That was really fun. Unexpected moments happen in your painting and you want to go with it. Sometimes if you see something, it's a technique if you can repeat it. If you go like this and you're like, oh, that was neat, and then you can do it again and get the same effect, that's a technique, not an accident. That's the rule. And this is a bit of a delicate operation, right? We're just kind of delicately going through here. Maybe a little more quinacridone with the white in it, kind of pulling that up. Soul Rebel says, are we still doing labs? Yes, we are still doing labs. We still have the licensing department. We have the patronage, and the labs program still going.
All just lots of new changes happening. So you guys are going to see just a bunch of stuff going on the website here over the next weeks, I'd say, really.
Bug, are there plans to use Pantone's color of the year? Yes. We will use that in paintings. But really, I mean, just keep in mind, it's just a mix of your Cad Red and your quinacridone magenta. A little stronger in your magenta than your Cad Red. So it's definitely in there. How far from the canvas do you hold the hairdryer? Like at least 6 inches out. I'm not trying to heat the canvas. I've got it on the low temperature. I'm just trying to, you know, dry the paint. I don't want to induce color shift. I'm gonna come here and really kind of, this is very magical. What we're doing here is this gives a magic effect, and notice that the splatters are showing through. I'm not trying to take away everything I put in, right? I'm just coming in and, you know, going through. If you want to see the color of the year, it's just basically right here, Cad Red, quinacridone magenta. There we go.
That's
color
a good
of the
question.
year.
Does the
we've used some Pantone color of the year.
When you use the saran wrap and make the the crinkly stuff, does it leave a texture on the surface?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if I have a white canvas somewhere that I could just real quick demo it
Well,
on one of our little breaks.
It doesn't dry fast, so it's a hard thing to demo quickly.
But I can demo how to get the texture.
Oh, that's true.
So if during a break, like one of the things you get me some, I'm just using some of the color of the year here, just kind of tapping that in just for fun. If John gets me some of that, I will fresh saran wrap. Yeah, you can heat my coffee, fresh saran wrap, and then a white canvas, and I will sacrifice a canvas.
Yeah, it would be really good if you could show how the...
Yeah, and we'll go over that technique again. Maybe we can make it a short.
Yeah, might even be able to show off how badass the pouch, the Sennelier pouch paint works at holding texture. They can't hear me.
That's not appropriate for here at all. I love the idea. Good, wonderful thinking, but it's not for this at all. It's actually would be sensitive to this because that would be water sensitivity. It's not a whole texture. It's wet paint has water sensitivity. But you made me think about that. We got to talk about that. So that's fantastic. I'm adding a little blue and white here, just kind of strengthening some of that blue, but I haven't taken out my texture at all. And I'm going to call this a step. And we're going to dry it, and then John will bring me a white canvas and everything. I'm going to dry now, and then before we start, we'll make it like a micro step. Like just go over the technique.
So yeah, I'll grab a little canvas, and then right here in the middle of it, we'll do a mid step between this one and the next one. So you guys can see some of that texturing skills. Yeah, so you can just continue to paint right over the texture as you go. So I'll see if I go get that. Hold on a second.
Any old blank canvas and saran wrap, and I'll do it again. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you this technique, and we're going to kind of really break it down on what makes it work. And makes it come together and how you get a really successful result. Talk about some of the challenges that you might have, and we'll timestamp this so that anyone wondering about that. Okay, fresh saran wrap. Sorry, babe. I'm running, John. Oh! Didn't know. You could have been like at your feet. I would have grabbed it. Okay. So here's my saran wrap, right? Or plastic wrap from the canvas. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to put it aside, and I'm going to, I think I can do it on the white canvas. It may even show it. Get a wet brush, and I'm going to thin out some color here. Now, one of the reasons that I like to use a professional paint on this is that as I wet it out, it's not going to have as much problem with underbinding at all, and I don't really have to worry about it. The surface needs to be dry, right? That's super important. The surface needs to be dry. We'll put some green here. So there's pigment in it, and it will bind, but you can see it's pretty wet. Now, you're going to take your saran wrap pulled out in the sheet, and you're going to kind of come down to this, and you're going to crinkle it in. See how I'm pressing in? And it already starts to create an effect. It capillaries the paint up from the surface. So you let it sit there for a second, right? And it's going to come in, and then sometimes it can help you if you're having a lot of trouble pulling the saran wrap and keeping the pattern to allow it to sit there for like an hour and dry underneath. But I think I can get, nope. It doesn't want to do it for me right now. So I would have to let it sit for a while. Let's see if I can get it from this side. So you can see it do the technique. Too wet. So I just had a lot of perfect moment on the other one. And we'll put this up here to the side. And it's going to have a dry for a while. And then we'll come back and pull it in a little bit and you can see it.
Okay, so
but
we'll
the
go to the
big
next
trick
step.
is to push in your saran wrap. And then you've got to pull it out where it holds that pattern, where it keeps that paint. So on this, because I pre-painted it with 2 coats of the purple, it didn't absorb the way that gesso might absorb, and it let the paint sit on it and had white in there, which is nice and pigmented, but it was still pretty wet, and I was able to pull that technique fairly well. Just make a short video of it at some point. So that's where we go. I think we're ready for a new step.
I just put one up for you. You're all good.
Fantastic. So at this stage, I can do a couple of things. I can start to sketch in my girl, and I can kind of plan where my star is going to be. So she is over here on the left-hand side. I'm using, oh, thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much. So I need an inch at least from the top of the canvas because I want room for the wings. She's over on the far left third. Believe it or not, what I'm going to do is a gesture. I'm going to kind of arc down and back to about just above the middle spot. And I'm going to arc up some knees. And this is going to help me place my arm later. And I'll bring down the dress, right? So now I know where she is. She's making this sort of interesting shape. I'm going to make about a little bigger than a dime size little drawing there. And I know her hair comes forward, right? So right here, I've got a shoulder. Bring the elbow down. And this arm, I mean, that's all we're really seeing. It's just an L joint of an arm, right? That implies that there. Her hair really just comes down there, just wave in here. And covers the arm. The great thing about chalk is that you can move it if you need to. And I will do some detail work on her later. I can even place in how I want my wings to be. I'm going to come up right at the shoulder line, maybe a little bit above. Right. Thank you. Pull in. Let's join it together here. You can use the traceable at this stage. If you don't like drawing, I totally provided a free traceable. It is on the website. There's a link in the description, and the mods can get you the link there. You can add one there. And this is a double wing, so we'll put one in perspective there. So we've got that there. Now, the star. My trick to the star is that I'm going to use a T-square. And I'm going to come in a little bit. Let's actually place it with a little circle. Maybe a little bit down. This is what she's looking to. And I'm going to use this T-square to help me plot my straight lines. See how I'm doing? So when I go to paint those in, I am not relying on myself to create straight lines. I am following a straight line. If I was really struggling, I could use tape. Now, this is a tailor's tool, so you can find these at Joann's, but you could also just use kids' chalk, right? So you don't have to have this really cool, handy dandy, awesome tool. And I love them. I particularly prefer the Dritz, D-R-I-T-Z chalk tool. It's a tailor's chalk tool because it's really nice. You get a lot of extra cartridges. They don't stain the paint in any way, no matter the color, and I just really enjoy them. Kind of thinking about what I've got here. I love it. Can't wait to do the folds of fabric. She's going to take up this much space. And I love that we've got little stars kind of coming up from her dress up. That's really all you got to do on that step. I have this tool from Amazon in my Amazon store listed there. The problem with Amazon, and I'm going to tell you right now, is sometimes they jack up the prices. So Always check any price. That's why we're opening our own store. Always check any price before you purchase it off my Amazon list, because sometimes they're way above market. But once you see what it is, you can search it on Google and find a good deal for it. Okay, are you ready? We're going to do another step.
Okay. We're stepped.
I am going to put out some white fluid paint. This is golden fluid acrylic titanium white, and it's sort of thinned already. You'll notice it doesn't have the body of the thick paint. Now you can thin your thick paint down with water to get it to have better brushability, have it, paint out better. I like to use this, and I have a bottle of this. They sell it in like a 1 ounce and then this big one. I do the big one just because I teach online all the time, and so I actually kind of go through it. But the small one is just generally enough for most of your painting needs, and it's just a great way to have something that will let you do a fine line. Okay, let's get a detail brush. I'm going to use a liner. This is a number 1 liner. I'm going to get my brush into this. And the long line is going to be, I'm not going to be here at the center. The center of this, right, will be right here as a little dot at the center. That's the star. We are Sherpa. Dude, we sure are. Goodness gracious.
Wow.
Now, this really helps me. The tool here, if you are new at painting and you're like, what do I invest in? Detail brushes. Because acrylic paint kind of wears them out. And you got to take really good care of them. And if you want a good one that will hold up. I have a bunch that I like, but what you really want is just a good detail brush. It gives you this nice fine line. Now, some of you guys really like to use a Posca pen, which is an acrylic paint pen, and that is totally acceptable. I'm going to taper this line to a soft line so that it thins. See how we're doing?
Yeah.
I'm not touching that line to the star. I want a little space between the chalk and the star and the line. A little bit long out here. Lori Kavanaugh, I love these colors. Thank you so much. What is a painting bridge? Asked Leslie Healing. A painting bridge is a literal arc of material. Generally, it's an acetator wood that goes up over your paper surface or your acrylic surface, and it's on a rise, and it's got a little wide bit that you can rest your hand against. You can also use something called a mahl stick, M-A-H-L, and use it to put against your canvas, and it rests. If you have trouble with a steady hand, and you don't have, like, if you just had a little help you could steady your hand, the bridge or the mahl stick is everything. Sometimes, honestly, it can help to hold your breath. I usually encourage breathing during the painting the whole way, but sometimes just holding your breath helps. There we go. So I love painting bridges. You can generally find them. I have an adjustable one that will go from paper to canvas that I'm pretty fond of. It's currently packed. Now these I like to do shorter. And when this is all dry, I can erase my chalk. There you go. That's that basis of that star. And we're going to let that have a dry for a minute. I'll put this aside. When we come back, we're going to put in some of our garden and then some of our fairy.
Okay, you're going to go ahead and dry there?
Yeah, I'll dry here.
Okay. Yeah, just let her give that a little dry, and then we're going to go on to the next step. This is actually coming together really great. And thank you guys for joining us. It's so nice to see everybody out here with us today. Wonderful way to start the year. A big crowd of our favorite people painting with us. I can't say it's a good fairy painting too. So that I'm sure that has attracted a lot of people.
Ooh, good question. Could you use high flow acrylics instead of fluid? Yes. Yeah, the inks or the soft bodies both work equally well. Totally interchangeable, and if for these purposes. And again, acrylic pens work too. All right, so in painting, we want to put things in the layer that they appear in, and we have some distant flowers back here that we've got to think about. So I'm going to grab this brush here and a little bit of this, and I'm going to kind of put in some of the more detail that's going on behind her wings in this sort of region. My first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of my white again. I haven't gotten the brush wet. Oh, I don't want the fluid white. I want my heavy bodied white. And I'm going to detail out some of this little scumbly technique, but a little more focused. Still very dry brushy. I'm just using a smaller brush. Oh, John, can you mute me for a second?
Yeah.
Thank
you. Okay, you're muted now. Huh?
You missed me.
Oh. Okay, well, I don't know what happened, but I don't know we heard it.
Okay, all right. Just got the hiccups going.
Oh, hiccup, sorry.
And I'm just scumbling this out. See, it's a dry brush, it's a scumble. I'm creating sort of a diffused, distant pattern. I just want this to be a little more of that. And come back into my red and yellow, a little more red and yellow. And then I'm going to slip over to my quinacridone magenta. I got in there, and that had some cad red, some quin magenta. And we're dry brushing. And then quin magenta. Doing some of that little detailing work, right? Just softly creating this diffused background. Now you can hear that I'm pressing a little harder. It's a deeper scumble, isn't it? Because it's a dry brush. Let's get a little more of that magenta. You can even get some dot ox purple and magenta to start blending up into that. See how the layering works. Now, if you're painting in oils, some of this is challenging because you have to get to these techniques a little differently because your materials stay wet and workable a little longer. And that's okay. In the same way that I can affect an effect that might look like an oil painting, oil painters can do the same thing, creating effects that look like an acrylic painting. Kind of blending this down here. See how we're going down? Some nice distant layer. Might come in and get a little of my ultramarine blue. Okay, for just a second, I'm going to come here and I'm going to grab just a bit of my cad red and my Docs purple. I'm going to create a very dark color. I want to make sure that this area down here stays super rich. And let's blend this in. Notice that I'm blending. Soft brush, kind of at an angle. See, I've got this connected at an angle. Get a little blue into that. It darkens it again, doesn't it? Working the brush at the angle, blending those two areas of paint in. Now I wipe my brush here, and I just make sure that this blend here is very nice. Kind of almost glazing in, doesn't it? Creating a beautiful diffused effect. So experimental. And what are we doing? We are playing, we're enjoying the process. Look at us go. Okay, rinse that out. Are open acrylics like oil paint? Yes, they were actually designed by the Golden family for their friends that painted oils that wanted to do some acrylics but did not enjoy the drying time. And they come with an incredible set of mediums and products and a lot of traditional colors. And if you're an oil painter and are just hating acrylics, but you want to use acrylic, they're fantastic. And you really control when they dry. They can be wet for like 2 days, or you can accelerate their drying. So it's actually pretty good. I'm going to come here, this round brush again. This is the number 6 Artany round. I'm going to add a little of my cad red to my cad yellow. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do little comma strokes. They're like little commas. Kind of paint in loosely a little flower right here. See? Just a little yellow flower right there. Maybe add a little one here. Kind of adding some of the red there. These are sort of floating out. These go behind the wings, so I'm just putting them in now because I know they're going to go behind the wings. Behind her. Let's get some of our quinacridone, magenta, and cad red together. Creating some of these deep reds. The deep, right, vivid magenta. Little touches. The little touches kind of represent flowers in this space. Come back into my red and even a little yellow. Now, if I take my Quin Magenta, my Cad Red, and a little bit of yellow, and I add white to it, I'm going to get peach. I'm going to get some gorgeous, vibrant peaches. And I'm coming in and making little marks, and these little marks kind of represent flowers. All right, see, we got the little peaches here.
Yeah.
This is implying little flower heads. Gotta love me some peach. Peach is one of my very favorite colors to play with. Put some here. More white into the Cad Red gives you kind of a coral. And now that some of that has kind of dried, what's great is I can come in and get a little more yellow and a smidge of Cad Red. And kind of add a thicker application. Okay, that's what we've got there. Got those in. Let's give that a dry. That's that whole crazy area.
that's pretty straightforward. You just kind of get those background color bits in, and then that comes together pretty quickly. I kind of like it. It really is all about the layers and learning how to work these from back to front. And that construction is part of why this is a more advanced beginner painting, is because it does require a little bit understanding of those layer processes. So maybe not your very first painting to try, but
all right, you guys are doing great.
Hard.
Let's take a deep breath. We're going to paint in a happy, childish way. I'm going to get some clean water in this same number 6 brush, and I'll go ahead and just clean up the chalk off the star. Well, that's nice. That worked out really, really well, didn't it? I'm going to take some white, and I mean, it's on a dry brush, right? I'm drying that brush on a paper towel. I'm going to come around my star, leaving a little darkness in the center. Am I observing all the new stars from the James Webb? Yes, I am. Hope you are too. Such inspiration. I got a little heavy there. I can come back with a bit of wet and lighten it up. So I'm not stuck at any point if I don't like how heavy it is. You can see the load on the brush. You can barely catch the paint. Lily Cleveland, by holding the brush further back, the looser the strokes. Yes, and also you can see things better, especially if you're standing at an easel. Though I have to say, like some artists, when you observe them paint, you will notice their strokes are actually still pretty controlled when they're further back. That's pretty good right there. Getting that initial glow in, right? Now I want that to dry before I add any yellow to it. So I'm going to let that have a bit of a rest. Kind of enjoy that. And I'm going to come in and start maybe thinking about my wings over here. But I need some Dox purple to do that. And here I have some. Oh, this one's the Artist Loft Level 3. So I guess I have a tube of that in there too. Which is a really good paint, by the way. Not the 1, but the 3. If you see that in the store, I hope they keep carrying it. It's a good paint. Definitely grab some. I'm going to grab a little of my Cad Red and my Dox Purple. And come here behind her and start painting in the wing. With a little Cad Red and Dox Purple. And while it's still wet, if I grab a little white, I can kind of like lightly blend that in, create like that little dusting in the wing. I like it very much. Now the main wing, I'm going to take my Cad Red and my Quin Magenta, and I'm going to add some white to it. And start to paint that part of the wing in. Got a great color. And it's soft right now at this stage. I don't have to worry about my hard edges yet. I'm just getting my color in. Getting that placement in. A little white over to my Cad Red and Quinacridone Magenta. And I can stroke back, and that kind of even implies some of the texture in the wing. See that? Just a place to start right there. Looking really good. Can always get a little bit of my dogs. Kind of make it a little darker here between the two wings. We don't mind that. And they're just lovely. Just on the toe. Woo! Look at those coming in. They're so nice. Just soft. Starting to look like wings. Now while they're still soft, I'm going to take a little bit of my Quin Magenta and Doc's Purple together. It's okay if they have some white in them. And I'm going to come back about, oh gosh, a ½ inch and not all the way to the edge. Sort of put in this little area that's a little more purple. Maybe just a little bit right there. Go ahead and get my peach sort of mixed into this color. It's going to do something sort of interesting. Dust that along there. Quin and Cad Red. Just a lot of white into that. Just want to see a light version. Brushing that back in. Just making a lighter version and brushing that back in. See, I'm just flicking back. The brush directionality does make a difference. Now I'm going to take a little of my Cad Red and my Cad Yellow. And it does have a smidge of white in it. So it's kind of in that darker peach. It's like a peachy orange. I'm going to brush that forward a little bit. Kind of come up. See, I went around that purple there, giving it kind of like a little bit of that glow there. A little brushing right here. And get right into my red. A little bit stronger than I would have liked. I'll just softly blend that out. Maybe a little bit there. Bringing in little spots of the red. They're kind of like little spots. And then I might even get a lot more yellow into this and kind of make a brighter orange. Brush it there. Brush right there. And they start to really come together. Okay. Those are really good. I'm going to rinse that out. And while that's all having a rinse, I'm going to go ahead and get a bit of yellow. It's again on a very dry brush. And dust this so lightly. See how lightly I'm touching the glow on the star? It's a pretty light touch on that glow. Yellow is fairly transparent. And I can always go back to a little white on a very dry brush. And add some focus glow. Easier than you'd think. Come back over with my #1 monogram liner. I can just brighten that white back up over the top of that glow. If I feel like it, I can add some little bright striations. If it makes me happy. Okay. Let's call that a step and dry everything.
All right. Just thoroughly dry that. I really like how the wings are coming in. That's all starting to take form and shape. Looking pretty good, I think. So, turning out really good. Super happy with that. So nice to see everybody hanging out with us.
Woo!
All right, you ready for your next step?
Yes, I'm totally ready for my next step. I'm going to use a #4 round in synthetic. So we've been using almost an equivalent size, even though this is #6 in the Artini line. These are pretty close in size, right? But I'm wanting a synthetic that has a good point. I'm going to go ahead and get my brush a little bit wet. Take a little blue, a little green, smidge of yellow, and lots of white. I'm using the fluid white here just so I have an easier time with it. I'm going to very carefully edge my little butterfly wings with these little strokes with this turquoise color. Doing little kind of comma strokes. Adding a little bit of maybe a structural line in there and another little kind of wing structural line. A little bit of kind of radial coming out in the turquoise. A little bit of radial coming out. Just brushing those back in. Just brushing that back in. I grab a little bit of white. Dry brush that on. Dry brush that there. See how that gives it sort of that delicate wingy feeling? Dry brush. So when I'm saying dry brush, there's not a lot of water on my brush. The paint is light and my pressure is light. And so a lot of what's underneath the stroke is showing through. A little bit of white dotting there. That's always a good way to go. A little bit of dotting. So when you're designing fantasy wings, if you look at lots and lots of actual wings that are out there on actual butterflies and moths, you'll notice that nature, I'm going to come back with a little bit of orange, I think, and kind of pop some of this, does some things fairly predictably and repeatably, including like things like dots and spots and lines and things that might be inclined, I'm going to grab a little red here, to kind of confuse a predator. Right? So even if you're doing something that's in fantasy, add a little more yellow. Oh, it's looking super good. A little bit of yellow into my turquoise. Make sure that I got nice. Nice representation there in my stuff. All right, I'm happy with that. That is that step. Isn't that wonderful? Look at those gorgeous wings. So sometime for fun, look at pictures of wings and just paint them, but paint them in rainbow colors or paint them differently and start to think about how they're constructed in nature, because it will help you. Oh, I kind of want to pop some more red on here. Just a second. I'm going to just take some Pure Cad on those spots because I think that will look nice. Yeah, okay. Because it will really, really help you see those things and be able to use them in unexpected ways in your painting. Let's try this and we'll come on to the next step.
Okay. Yeah, I really like those wings. They turned out super nice. So nice to see everybody here from all over the world. Look at you guys, just visiting from everywhere. It's nice to see everyone talking about where they're from and what all you guys are doing out there. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, me too.
She's 3-hoot, but she's a wonderful 3-hoot. Now, skin tone, but fantasy skin tone. I'm going to take a little of my Cad Red down to my yellow ochre. I'm going to mix them together, and I'm going to get kind of a peachy red. When you get white into it, you're going to kind of see a basic beginning of a fairish skin tone. I'm going to come here to the top of the shoulder. Start to paint in skin tone layer number 1. Got the ball. A little bit back here, which would be the dress, kind of a little kiss of that. Come down to the elbow. I know I'm going to be shading that later. Got a slight implication of the bicep. Again, we're just doing a little bit of an arm. And we know that a lot of this arm, right, is going to vanish under the hair. So when I have this kind of basic skin tone down, I can come in and grab a little of my purple, and I mix that in there. Kind of brush this back and shade that a little bit. Let that have a dry because we're going to layer that up. And our dress color is going to be a little Dox purple and phthalo blue and white. I'm still in my number 4 round because it's going to give me control. And I'm going to start with that first kind of dark implication of color. Start to play with that. A little white over here. Now I don't actually want to take it all the way down. I kind of, can you see how I'm sort of being streaky? That's because I'm going to create this sort of fairy dust effect coming up. What's hard about this painting isn't any individual technique. It is just the totality of there's so many techniques. And so that's why I might have rated it a higher difficulty level, because there's a lot that you're doing, right? And when you're new and you're taking on a lot, that can feel kind of overwhelming. I am brushing this back in kind of a fan. This is going to help me imply fabric. Now I'm going to come in and get my dark purple. And that dark purple will definitely be under that arm and elbow. I'm also going to come forward with a little bit of this dark color right here. Even as I know I'm putting the hair there, I know that there's going to be this deep shadow. And there's no point in not. And I can bring that little shadow down there, and you can start to see the arm have a bend to it. Don't put your brush in your coffee. I was about to do. I'm going to take my big round brush. I'm going to come back with my dark purple. We're going to brush up under the dress. Right here, I might tap out a little bit, kind of blending that darkness into more of a spotted way. See what I'm doing? Hello, darkness, my old friend. All right, here we go. Just working that indirect patterning out. Enjoying that there's going to be shading and blending and all of these things that make this so much fun. Look at that go. She's starting to sit there, isn't she? Just perched out, easier than you'd think. You know, just a little easier than you think. I'm going to take my purple, interestingly enough, and my burnt sienna together. And I'm going to come on the back of her head. Very carefully over the front. Paint even inside what I sketched a little bit, because it's always easier to make it bigger. A little hard to make it smaller. There we go. The hair is waving down. Again, if you've got the traceable, some of this will be easier on you because you won't be trying to figure out where your lines are. Because she's turned, because she's looking away, because her hair is long, because we're only dealing with the arm and the gesture of her body, it doesn't take a lot for us to be able to get the figure. Okay, we're going to dry this. We're going to call this a step because we got to get this at least in to get the rest of her.
Okay.
And come back. We're going to add these highlights and shadows where all of a sudden you're going to be like, there's a fairy sitting there.
Is it? So thank you, Celtic Peasant. Thank you, everybody out there. It's so nice. I really appreciate this. Sarah and I both really appreciate the support. It's just, can't say how much we appreciate your guys being here with us and helping us. We love doing this. We really, really do. This is like our favorite thing to do, is to hang around and paint paintings and share it with you guys. Make booklets that you can download for free off our website or wherever we put them in the future. Because We may have to change things, but they'll still be out there for you.
They'll still be there. All right. Thank you, Celtic Buzz. I appreciate that so much. Now let's have some fun getting in these highlights, which start to really pull, you know, who she is and her little magic world kind of completely together. All right. Now, highlights are going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to get into my purple and again, my burnt sienna, maybe even sometimes my yellow. This will be real fun to play with. And we'll add a little white to that mix. Maybe over here. Just kind of finding my perfect little moment. From the top of her head, I'm going to take this sort of darkest highlight sort of space, and I'm going to do some brushing down, just beginning to capture the flow of the hair. These are going to be little curves, and they go the opposite way. And this will begin to tell the story of the fall of her hair. Little short curves, little highlights that are starting to begin to show. Hair is, sometimes it's tempting to just paint every individual hair when really we're just trying to paint, you know, the totalities of the hair. So that's pretty good. A little bit of a strange color. Back into my cad red and magenta and Doc's purple. Interesting color combo together. A little more cad red. Adding white to lighten it. That next kind of wonderful, fun, unexpected sort of purple cast. Much brighter. Get that highlight on the top of her head. Notice that a lot of my strokes have curves to them. And those curves help me see the fall and wave and flow of the hair. We'll let that have a little bit of a dry. We're going to come back and we've got our little skin tone here. Right? And where we have our purple mix even, I can come over here. Look at this. Mixing my skin tone into this crazy purple is good. I'm going to come behind the shoulder because the purple is going to be sort of where we see the shadows. Let's get a little more yellow ochre into it. We've gotten some white in there. And the forward of her arm, right, is a little more in highlight. A little bit right there. Much lighter, almost a yellow now. Gotta get that purple again, kind of make sure that we see that shadow on the arm. I'm going to take my yellow ochre over here to my blue purple mix. It's kind of like cool, it's kind of dark. Come underneath. And a little bit of a shadow there. And I can always shade anything or reshape. Look how easily. Right? I can yellow ochre and purple together. And I'm going to get a little white. Kind of hit this blue. And even whiter than that. Right here at the back of that elbow. It's like just a little bit of that. A little bit there. Yeah, pull that up a bit. Very light yellow ochre. Looking good. So that's starting to come in, right? Always blend anything you've got. Just playing with those colors. And they are unusual, right? Because she's fairy. So whereas skin tones can sometimes feel super frustrating and overwhelming, in this particular instance, I say it's okay. Now I'm going to take my purple and my Quin Magenta. I might even use my Ultramarine and Quin Magenta. They make a nice purple. And then I can rock from blues to... See how we can go? Brushing that kind of little bit of highlight going on in her little dress. Little lines. These will be just kind of, you know, the pops and goes of highlights and lowlights that are going on. And then where I need it, can always take that dark purple and create shadow. Can even come into the hair. And exaggerate shadow where shadow is needed to be exaggerated. I can get into my Cad Red. Again, accentuating how the hair is falling. Even adding some highlights here. So we're seeing things just so much more, aren't we? Adding little highlights. Okay. If the hair is dry, which it is, I'm going to come in and first a little cad red, purple, and white. Just make sure. There's lots of tonality. So purple and yellow ochre. Or you can do purple and cad yellow. Either will work. So we can play with that over here a little bit. Could be fun. Taking a little of my cad yellow over to where my yellow ochre is, and I'm putting in a little purple, and you can see that they gray each other out. A little bit of a halo on the outside of the head. Kind of comes back a bit. Maybe a little bit right there. I'm going to get a lot more white into it. And maybe a little more cad yellow into it. Really kind of brighten it up. A little bit off there, because these are like the star reflecting. It's kind of a magical glow. It's kind of a little bit there. Let the hair flow. There we go. She's got a little bit of hair there. She's looking so good. Now we're going to finish the dress in its own step because we're going to be working on folds and the star effect, and it's going to be a little bit involved. And then honestly, the rest of it is sort of fast from here.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
So, hold on a second. Just had a little cough there. So thank you guys for joining us. It's very nice. You can find all the information in the description down below, along with links to our website, which is theartsherpa.com. We have all sorts of cool stuff out there coming, stores and places to play. All right, let's go do another step, eh?
Yes. Mary Dobbins says, Happy New Year. I am loving this. Way beyond me, but I'm trying. Not today, but maybe in the future. I love that. Even if it's a not today, enjoy, learn the techniques, play along. Don't worry about the outcome. And then, yes, in the future, as you keep building those techniques, if many of these are challenging, just do the beginner acrylic painting course because it's totally free. And then, and it just takes you through all the core techniques. And then remember that the mini book comes out. And if you're close, that mini book is what can push you right over the edge into that next space. Okay, I'm going to come into my number 4 round and back into my turquoise. So that's the phthalo blue and phthalo green and sometimes a little bit of yellow, but really right now I just want these two to start. And I'm going to bring a stroke down. So I'm just starting to highlight just the beginnings. Those little curves start to talk about the folds of fabric. And then definitely coming down the back here. Like a lot more white. Let's pop some yellow in it to make it a little radioactive. Right. That brush stroke got away from me, so what I did is I went back into the purple and kind of smoothed and blended that back in. See how we did? Letting that not take over everything. A little bit off the back of her dress there. These are light lines because this is like a very delicate fabric. There it goes, just kind of showing that there. Maybe some just pure phthalo blue. Oh, what did the pixie say to another pixie? It's very nice to meet you. It's very nice to meet you too. See, you know why? That's why you come to art retreats. Because then you get to meet wonderful people who have those kinds of puns just right in their back pocket. Let's just bring these kind of little lines down and sort of show the flow of everything. Excellent. Now I'm going to take a little bit of my white and my cad yellow. Kind of come and create a glow on the outside edge of the fabric. And actually we're going to kind of edge up this little glow down the figure, creating this sort of little outline glow. And try not to go too crazy with it, but just adding little bits. See how we're just making small little curve marks to first speak to this starlit glow. You gotta never underestimate the power of a starlit glow. Oh, thank you, Tia. Tia's like, thank you so much for the free lessons. You are so welcome. Okay, now when we have that in, we get to start doing our little glows. And the first part of the glow that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my blue and a lot of my titanium white, like this, and I'm going to get them on this number 4 round brush on the toe of it. See how I'm on the toe? And I'm going to make little dots. Just so many little dots. Some will be bigger, some will be smaller. And we will have flowers in front of these dots. Like you do. I love you guys throwing up those little emojis. I'm going to bring them up into her dress. Coming right up her back. Okay. I don't want it to be a whole nother step, but we do have to dry it before we can add the dots. So, do you think you want to make it a step, John?
No, I mean, it's up to you. We can step it.
All right, we'll step it for just the dots, but it would just be the dots in one step.
That's
the final
fine.
dots.
It's okay.
Okay.
I think that she's worried about how many overall steps we have. To which I can say, not enough, but I can always make more as on the fly kind of thing. Because I think that we currently, let me look at this, how many steps we have pre-made. I think we have pre-made like, preloaded or 15 steps, but that's okay. We'll call this step 13.
Okay.
Boom.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to come here and put just a little bit of white paint on my liner. And in the center of the blue, sometimes not in the center of the blue. Sometimes big, sometimes small. I'm going to add the little stars. Little magic. Kind of glitter, dust. Fun stuff, this. So sometimes in a painting, it's not that the painting is not doable for you, but there's just a lot to do in the painting. And if you were trying to do something from your imagination and you didn't yet know how to paint, well, there's a lot of things to know about what's involved in something like this. A lot of layers, a lot of thinking. And once you've done a few of these, though, and you start to understand that, you know, then it's just, oh, I know what's involved in my painting. Notice how some of these dots are just super micro small and some are much more noticeable. If you had my dotting tool from the old brush line, you could absolutely use the dotting tool for this. Just working these little sparkles up into her. She just glitters and glows. Just want to make sure that these are well dispersed and visually there so that they are really, really sparkling before we put a flower on her. Before we do a single flower, my friends. Look at her go. She's beautiful. Little sparkle coming up her back. I think I'm going to add a little. Sorry, I just saw little spots on the wings I wanted to brighten up a little bit. That'll happen to me sometimes where I'll be working and I'm like, I feel like you could use a brightening. Now that the dots are there and you're like comparing them. And since we've got the brush out anyways, right? We've got it on anyways. Let's take a little bit of our green and a little bit of our yellow. Right? A little green and yellow. Maybe a bit of our burnt sienna. I'm going to add some stems. Of some fine flowers that are in the background. See how we're doing? Because some of this we do with the other brushes, but we can do this work right here. These little lines there are there. Okay, let's dry everything and come back. We'll do the next step.
Okay. This is really starting to pop together. I think the next parts of these flowers are going to come in so good. Oh man, that's such a magical dress. I think that turned out so nice. Really happy. Really impressed. I like it a lot. So, and see, you can do this too at home. This is why you got the paint along class, so you can do this right with us. All right, I think we were ready for the next step.
I think so. I'm going to do my round again, my number 6 round. I'm going to come here and get a little of my yellow out and a little white. I'm going to come on the inside of this little flower and add a highlight. And then I'm going to get some brighter orange going. A little cad red, a little cad yellow. Let's put a nice bigger flower right here. And then let's start one kind of happening here. I'm gonna maybe get some bright yellow and let's get some cad red. Pure red. I'm gonna put a little stem off there. Isn't that fun? It's like just wild. Hot messy flower. I love hot messy flowers. If you did the big art quest where we did florals, you're like, I know this. I know this dance. I'm so familiar. Adding a little bit of bright red to that. Rinse out. They're just glowing in her world, aren't they? I love that. So I'm going to be a lot magenta and a little bit maybe purple or ultramarine. Either is fine. They'll create some nice colors for you. Get some white into it so we can see even the first range of it. And I'm going to come here. Curved up brushstroke, counter curved. Curving up. That's a pretty big flower right there. Let's get a little bit of our ultramarine and quinacridone magenta and some white. Little curved strokes kind of coming together. And then we're going to add white to it as we go. Just curving those back, just that basic shape. Let's get a little white into that so we can see it. It's the darkest kind of value of it, but I like to at least be able to see something of it. Little curves. See how these strokes are like little curves and little commas, and that implies the directionality of things. This one's going to be like a little ball. You come down there and add some little kind of dark magenta to it. All right, I'll rinse out some. Get a little cad red and a lot more quin magenta involved. This will be kind of little strokes out. If you can see that, like a little thistle right there, fairly large. This will be a tulip. So I curve at the bottom out and then kind of just paint that basic shape. Not everything that you've ever known about the tulip, it's just some of what you know about the tulip. It's fun to paint a garden like this. At this point, I'm just grabbing color, right? And just making sure that I have flowers that I feel like a nice placement of flowers. Okay, so we're going to dry that. Now we know where our flowers are, and we're going to come put some details in these things, right?
Yeah. I just really love how these flowers have come together. Super, super pretty. It's one of my favorite paintings she's done in a long time. Thank you guys. Just seeing everybody.
This stage, right?
Yeah.
We're laying them in. We're not painting them yet. We're laying them in.
You're gonna leave this video up on the channel so they can rewatch
yeah.
right here.
I leave this up. I don't expect you to paint it all in one sitting.
New step.
New step. I'm taking a little bit of my quinacridone magenta and my cad red and some white together. Let's come here and think about this little fellow. I'm still in the number 6 round at the hog bristles. I'm painting kind of some edges of these little petals here. Right? Little edges of the petals. And a little bit forward. Maybe Add some red to that. Just kind of capture that there. And just a lot more white. You can even get yellow. Just start to see it. Gonna get some of my quinacridone. Slightly lighter pink right here. Paint some of the petal structure. Come in and capture the light on the inside of those petals. I'm just grabbing some white. I'm going to grab some of the white and quinacridone magenta, and there's a little cad yellow in this quin over here, so it's kind of warmer. We're going to come right here. Little short strokes. And then as I go in, I'm just going to get more quin. Again, little shorter strokes. And just capture some of the tops of those petals. If I like a color that could go somewhere else, sometimes I'll bring it around to some other places. I'm going to add some yellow on my brush right here. Just grabbing some yellow. A little yellow and orange right here. Just painting them forward, right? Little quin and purple and white. Quin and white. We'll start here. You can always purple it up with a little I'm going to get some nice just pure quin on the brush. Can you see that there? It's just highlight little bits of that flower. It's just kind of going to start to piece out some of these little loose, crazy petals on what is a kind of like a mum. Get a little docks purple and white. My brush kind of for down here. That brush is, you know, it's kind of cooler on the bottom, and I'm going to take some just docks purple. Add it to the centers there. Add some to the bottom here. Maybe some in the center there. Let's add some white to the tops of this one. Got the purple and white on there. Just found that flower, didn't we? Sometimes you're just
there.
along and like, oh, there you are. I did not know you were here the whole time. Kind of facing those flowers that one direction now that I put the petals behind them. Let's get a little of the pink and white going here. A little bit of a flower happening there. I'm going to add a little of my white again to my brush here. Start to really pop some highlighted petals right in this space. They're not going to be all the way down the flower. Get a bunch more quin on here. Just kind of go around that one. Smoosh out this purple center. I'm going to smoosh it out. That's a little bright for what I'm looking for, so I can come back and be like, oh no, not brighter, yes, but not quite that bright. All right, so I just sort of knocked it back a bit. I'll come in with my white here. A little bit more white there. Just, you know, you just keep pulling it up. Come around that, and then I can add little petals to that inside. A little bit of quin and white. Quin magenta and cad red. They can do some interesting things together. Like highlight some flowers there. Rinse out. I'm going to take a little bit of my cad red and my cad yellow again. Kind of find the flowers and even brighten them up. See how we're brightening them up? super rinse it out. I'm going to come here and I'm going to grab just a little yellow into this white. Touch the edges of some things. Just little highlights on some of the flowers. Just touching. Might switch to my number 4 round just for this one. Kind of touch up some little...
Carol was just asking about soap as a topical subject.
So we have been talking about soap in our own world.
Mm-hmm.
And we are actually looking to get that rebooted. I'm adding a little bit of white to the top of that just to...
So we're going to have some soaps news soon. And
So
what we mean by
much
soon is
news.
that like we're working with a manufacturer right now to get some manufactured and put into the store, and then we'll have like we generally don't try to say we're gonna do it soon because then soon
You just never know
gets
how long
delayed.
stuff... Yeah, it does get delayed a lot.
So what we're doing is we're doing a bunch of stuff. I'm not telling you guys about the
Taking
stuff we're
yellow
doing.
and white and kind of adding some highlights to the inside of these. Kind of yellow, and
But since you asked, we're working on the soap.
we super are. Liking this very much. I like this idea too of like, you know, these colors that are going to be peeking around between the greens. Okay, that's it for that. I feel like those are in wonderfully. Let's dry it and we'll come back and do the green.
That sounds good. All right, this is so nice. Man. It's just turned out to be so beautiful. I'm so happy. Thank you guys for joining us for this. I'm really just enjoyed this one a lot, I have to say. It's, yeah, Robin, I like this one too. Pretty cool.
Yay!
So we need a new step for this one.
We do. New
right.
step. It's going to be a new step. Trying to decide, do I want a filbert? I might want a filbert. Indulge me in the filberting. I'm going to filbert. Filbert is a brush that is rounded, and I kind of like to use it for leaves. I've got a variety of these. This one here is the Simply Simmons filbert. It's a number 6. You can get them pretty easily and inexpensively. I have a very nice filbert. Well, this is a D brush, but would do a similar thing. I have nice from this line, which is the Textura, but I'm going to do the Simply Simmons right now.
Seems reasonable.
Okay. So I'm going to come here and grab my Burnt Sienna and my Phthalo Green and a smidge of my Cad Yellow to start. And I'm going to make little curve marks. That are going to represent the beginnings. Of the greenery. See how it's just very gestural? I'm letting the shape of the brush create it. Because, you know. Can put little stamens in where I feel like they would be. And what's nice is you can also create little stems pretty easily with these. Because they do nice lines. I'll fill these in with little gestural strokes that are quite loose. Then as I want to kind of reveal it, I add a little cad yellow. You can keep the burnt sienna in it to sort of tone it. Just for a dry brush and loosely imply these little leaves and little moments that are here and there. A little more yellow, a little more brown. You know, I just keep bringing it up. And the important thing about this is that much like everything else, it's very light and delicate because that's what gives it that sort of fairy garden feel. Quite a lot of yellow. And then a little white. And just capture some of these little highlights. Just a little bit. Just touching the tops of the greens. And so I'm leaving dark green, middle green, and then just catching some highlights at the tops. Those get pulled forward and revealed. Hey, can you peek out the front door?
Yeah.
Thank you. That was concerning. Sorry, I just heard a child yell, Mommy, let me go. So I assume it's siblings because there's a lot of siblings living next door, but we're just going to look out the front door to be sure. You got to be kind of responsible adults. So if you see me look a little bit like, sometimes your mommy ears hear things and like the first thing you listen is like, is this Luna Bella and does one of the siblings in a fight? And then you're like, oh, okay, that's not my.
3 kids running up the road chasing each other.
Okay. All right. Now, see if we can get this, released. If you were here earlier on the technique, that's how it is. So if it's not coming out for you initially, that's where it is on the set. See, so it just needed to set for me a little bit, and then it did the technique.
Oh, you're all done?
Yeah. So that is where we're at, and I'm going to sign it. Yeah, I know. I'm just like that.
Just turned out fantastic.
On that saran wrap technique, don't let that throw you, because look, it's awesome and it just looks amazing in a painting, and you can use this on so many backgrounds and so many textures. It does really good rocks. There's a lot that you can get done with this, and it's sometimes these things seem intimidating, but it's actually just understanding the different little things that can make it work. Put this over there. So I just wanted you to see that and see it peel. I'm using my liner brush to do my signature because it gives me a nice line, and I'm picking a color that's in the harmony of the painting, right? So this is a color I've used in the painting so that it doesn't stand out in a way I don't like. There we go. We did it. We kicked off the new year with a fairly 3-hoop painting, but come on, do we not love her? We love her. Now, if you had this painting in your heart and you're like, I really had to do it, I just really had to do it, and you were struggling at all, the mini book, you know, it really does only take us about 7 to 14 days to get those out, and that might be totally worth it. And you watched it today, and then you're like, you know, I kind of match the painting.
You do. It turned out
so
nice.
Maybe that's what my thinking was. I'm gonna match the painting today.
I think a lot of people would love to see this as some sort of print or object that they could own. So
I'd be happy to do this as a
see what we can
limited
do.
edition.
Yeah, cups or mugs or something.
Yeah, we could do something like that. I think we have the way to do it. Yeah, we have a way to do that. So we'll look at that. We could definitely do that. And I love her. I think she's just really pretty, and she definitely is the fairy for 2023. Guys, this year, we those other years, they're gone. We don't even have to look back. They're done. We're in this new year, and I need this year not to take its, like, don't hold my beer year. Don't do that. Just coast this one, right? Let us all.
May it be a very mellow, boring year.
Gosh. Would that not be? I don't need of the century or the worst scene in 500 years, or just none of it. Just a breath, universe. I just wish that for all of us, and I wish that for you. You guys, be good to yourselves. Be good to each other, and I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.